Hey boss, you want to see me? Yeah, come on in. Go ahead and take a seat. How's business been going out there? Well, you know what? We've been crushing it. Yeah, absolutely crushing it. I mean, the numbers are through the roof. I think it's going to be hands down one of the best years that we've had. Yeah, I know. I see that. I was going over the numbers this morning and they are impressive. Been working pretty hard. Yeah. How long you been with the company for? Oh, I'm getting close to about 10 years now. Yeah? Really? Very nice. And do you have any like future plans at all? Or, you ever thought about the future? Just future? Crushing it with you? Yeah. Like totally, we're going to crush it. Yeah. Well, you might want to start considering some because yeah, you're no longer needed. Yeah, we're dissolving your position. Yeah, I know, exciting, right? And you got about 10 minutes. You see that little box over there? Yeah, that little brown one. Can you just like kind of go to your office and pack it all up real quick? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unscripted Faith. Episode 10, The Wake Up Call. Don't answer it, don't answer it. The Wake Up Call. If you haven't got one yet, you're going to get one. Everybody gets them. Some get more than others, but the wake up call is coming or will come, but I hope it never does. But anyway, I want to share some things about my own wake-up call. And it happened about, I don't know, carry the 2 divided by 7, probably about 5 years ago. And it was during COVID. That's right. And I think that a lot of you, well, at least the 2 or 3 that are watching, probably could understand or know somebody that went through the same thing that I went through, right? It was the biggest wake-up call of my life. And I was working for a company, very big company. I was crushing it, was doing very good. I was close to being about 10 years in, not quite there yet, not quite there, but I was there, right? Then all of a sudden COVID hits. And I was in an industry that got hit very, very hard. That was the beverage, alcohol, distribution industry. And I got hit really hard because guess what happened? I got locked in an apartment with a closet full of samples that maybe had to be drank. I don't know. But it wasn't good, right? It wasn't good. But just like a lot of you out there, we got the phone call one day saying that, stay at home. We're trying to figure this out. The weeks turned into months sort of a deal. And then all of a sudden, after we were, months and months in of not going back to work, I got the invite for a call, right? The good old, like the conference calls, like, you got to click the phone on. You got that cheesy music, like, it's just so annoying. And then, half the time you're just like, yeah, sure. Like not even paying attention. Oh, yeah, right? Anyway, I got the call. And I knew what was coming, right? I knew it. I didn't believe it. But I kind of knew it, right? And I remember we were living in an apartment, and it was me and my wife, and my oldest son was 4 at the time, and we just had a newborn with us, 2-year-old. Well, I guess that's not a newborn. I guess 2 years newborn. And I saw this call, and I was just like, oh, man, I need to go into the spare bedroom. We had 2 bedrooms, right? It was an older apartment, but anyway, I went into the second bedroom, shut the door, put the phone on, and I just stared out the window. And it was super creepy because where we live, there's beautiful mountains, skiing, all this stuff. And I mean, usually it's just like people are always out doing their thing. And I just looked out my window and it was a beautiful day, right? I wanted to be outside. And like the parking lot was full, and it was never full at that time because everybody was home from work. Everything was shut down. I mean, you couldn't even put in a pickup delivery from Walmart. You know, you couldn't even get to Walmart. I mean, gosh, that's when you know things are bad, right? But they're essential. I, on the other hand, was not essential. So I'm sitting there and my little guy's just banging on the door. He thinks it's like a game, hide and seek. He's like, let me in, let me in. I'm like, no, you can't. And, you know, the call happens, and it was one of those where, like, if you're getting this call, then HR is going to be reaching out to you, and, you know, pretty much you're just no longer needed, you know, in a very nice way. So I handled that, and, you know, HR called me personally because, you know, everybody was with different amounts of time with the company, and there's a lot to do with that based on, like, severances and so on and so forth. And, you know, they gave me a choice, right? They were very nice, at least to me. They gave me a choice. And the choice was either a severance, right? Or I could take a demotion, go back to the position I was in like 3 or 4 years ago that I hated, that I couldn't wait to get out of. And that's why I worked so hard and did so good, just so I can get out of that position. And of course, you know, the cut and pay. Now, I looked at both those decisions, you know, and I weighed them, right? And I saw the path that if I went back would lead me to. Now, it was the no-brainer solution for most people, right? Bills are starting to pile up. Stimulus checks are going to be running out. What do? I got 2 kids. My wife's not working. I'm the one who's like literally in charge of like everything going on financially. Right? And what do? And they gave me a few days to think about it, and I weighed that decision over very heavily. You know, for me, I was at the point in the industry where I was kind of outgrowing my position anyway, and I was in a small market, which I love small markets. I don't like big markets. I don't want to live in a city. I would rather see tractors driving down the road than fancy Range Rovers any day of the week, right? Honking at people. I don't need that, right? Not to say you guys all honk at people, but you know where I'm going with that. And either way, I was going to have to move, right? But the thought of losing a job during COVID, when there was no end in sight to like when this was going to blow over, was like paralyzing, right? I mean, the fear that's involved with that, you know what I mean? Like going, oh my gosh, I got to pay these bills. I need a job. And now all of a sudden, right? To cut yourself from the company throws you into a talent pool now with millions of other people that just got that same phone call. And now we're all overqualified, trying to fight for whatever positions are available, you know, or trying to switch industries. And it was a very, very like stressful time. I'm sure you guys can all relate with that. I mean, we all had to go through it. We all might have been at different stages. You might have been a person that actually was working for a company that maybe did really well during COVID. You know, or vice versa, like me that got shut down, you know? So it was tough. And it was, man, it's like, you know, I'm trying to butter up my resume and I'm like, golly, dude, look at these jobs that are available. And I'm trying to spending all this time switching and tweaking it and doing all this and, you know, trying to pretend like I had the experience for that job and relate the skills. You know how you got to do that? You got to like bend it a little bit. And I talked to my wife about that. And, you know, it's funny, man. The decision for her was so easy. Like she saw something in me that I knew I had, but I never really had it. And, you know, we've been together for like 5 years at this point. So it was like, you know, you kind of start to know the other person a little bit, just a little bit, you know. And I think she saw something in me that I just couldn't see in myself. And I was scared to see it in me, but I knew what I had to do. Like deep down, it's hard for me to admit it, but I was happy that I was in this position, right? And I knew the answer that I had to give. And I was always too afraid to do it on my own because when things are going good and you're getting promoted and you're moving your way up and you start getting the bigger paychecks and then you can finally move out of the apartment and you're looking at houses, new cars, all that stuff. And it really just starts to compound really fast, right? Every couple years, promotion, you go, wow, this is actually, you know, pretty good. It might not be what you want to do, but everything else starts to outweigh that and you lose track of kind of the dreams you maybe had as a kid or what you really wanted to do, right? And I kind of reached that point where it was like, man, I know that there's something out there for me. I just don't know what the hell it is. Like all those wasted prayers to God, like, God, if there's one thing, just give it to me. Just give it to me. Just let me wake up and find it. I don't care what it is. I just want to do something that I know when I look back on my life, I actually went to work and came home. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it was like, something I could be like, oh, wow, I was satisfied with what I did that day, because you can find ways to justify everything, right? You could always find a way to justify the worst job in the world if you don't want it, or if it's not for you, or you're doing something that, inside's like, no, I think you should be doing something like this, but in order to get that, you got to give this up, and where do you go, right? You give up the safety and the security, you go out into the unknown. Now things get really weird, man. It's tough out there. It's so nice by the fire here, And me and my wife talked about that, and we were like, she was just like, just take the severance. And I'm just like, what? Like, do you want to talk about this? She's like, no, just take the severance. And I'm like, wow, that was easy. Where'd that come from? And it wasn't a big severance by any means. I mean, trust me, I wish I was on Wall Street like my friends, maybe working for these big banks. I mean, yeah, their severances, if they took one or even decided to, were probably huge. I could probably buy a house with those severance. Me, I bought myself maybe a few months to kind of, I don't know, kick and scrape around for a little bit and pray that I could find a job within 2 or 3 months, which was probably going to realistically take 6 months, just for how everything was kind of lining up. And because my wife was Cambodian, I met her in Cambodia. I don't know if I told you guys that in some other videos. I'll make a video about that because that's kind of a cool story. But anyway, I met her in Cambodia. At this point, we were married for about 5 years, right? We've been together at this point for like 8 years. And yeah, she was just like, let's just go move to Cambodia. And I'm like, what? Hold on, I need a second here. You're telling me to take the severance. I'm the one who's got to pay the bills. And now you're telling me, let's take that and just go move to Cambodia. Now, in my 20s, even in my early 30s, I thought, hell yeah, Cambodia, I love Cambodia. Tropical weather, white sand beaches, crystal clear water, cold beers that are like 25 cents. I'm in all day. Fresh seafood right out of the ocean. Sign me up. But now the kids are involved and the family's involved, and it's like, whoa, time out. Let me think about this. She was like, no, you don't need to think about it. Let's just go. So I'm like, that's why I married you, woman, because you always get the best of me. So I went in, I took the severance, right? And like I said, this wasn't a big severance, but it was big enough to buy us some time. And since we were using it to go to Cambodia, it would buy us even more time because the cost of living over there is just so much cheaper. Yeah, it's cheaper. Right, so we moved the family to Cambodia. We went in a little bit of a holding pattern because we couldn't get into the country because it was on lockdown. So we had to put some time in, wait a little bit, and then we went. We made a break for it. And when we got there, it was amazing, right? So I was pretty good. I put some money away in the 401ks, right? Yeah. Inflating that thing, man. I get money, throw it into that, right? I had the severance. I had a little bit of savings. We were trying to start saving up for a house, and Uncle Sam was throwing some money around. And, we did that. And we went over to Cambodia and lost it all. Yeah. One year turned into two turned into three. And we got into some stuff that I didn't think could ever happen. Like devastating stuff. Like I was doing things where I'm like, I can't do this. I am too smart for this. I'm too smart. I shouldn't be doing this. Right? Like, sorry, Dad. I know you gave me all this financial advice, but I'm completely throwing it out the window and I'm breaking every single rule and it sucks and it's stupid and I'm an idiot. I don't know, but there's just something I need to figure out here. And when I went, I had nothing, no ideas, no business ideas, none of that. I mean, I sat there and I tried to, conjure up stuff, but it wasn't working, right? But I knew that if there was something out there for me, I'd find it. I wasn't going to get on a plane until I came home. And let's fast forward a little bit. So we get through Cambodia, because that's another video in itself. Some crazy crap happened during that time. And, we get back to the US and I started working on a few personal projects that somehow found their way into my life. And that experience of that wake-up call with my job, right, and my employment really opened my eyes. And I started to think about it from like a spiritual standpoint, right? And it amazed me because here I was, a guy working hard, working for a company, so I was an employer, right? And then all of a sudden I just show up one day and they no longer need me, right? Just don't need me. Like, thanks, but Now I learned a lot and I gained some skills, so it's not like I just lost everything. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. But it really put it into perspective because for the first time in my life, I wasn't in control. Other people were in control for me and controlled my destiny. And now I was thrown into a position where now I have to find control in a way that I've never had to find control in a way because I've never actually gone out and done anything like this, right? And that's a very scary thing. And it made me think about my faith a lot since I wanted to do this channel about faith. And I kind of like talking about things that you usually don't hear sitting in a pew on a Sunday. And I feel there's other ways to kind of get to people instead of just all the traditional boring stuff, right? Like if you like that, that's great. I'm not saying that's bad, but I think there's a lot of us out there that are curious. And sometimes we see things that we want to explore and go find out for ourselves. And it doesn't make us a bad person, but sometimes we feel a little bit hesitant to because it doesn't align, with the way that it's supposed to be aligned for us or the structure. We don't fall into the structure. And I saw this a lot with the church, especially with some of the, like my grandma and, some of the older people, right? And it's like one of those things where I saw how she put her entire trust into the church for them to be her kind of spiritual pilot, right? And I think that's very common. In organized religion, in institutionalized religion, I think it's a very common thing for people to trust the church when it comes to spiritual matters because they're the experts, they're the ones with advice, or the best advice for you. Why? They study it, they live it. Well, they don't really live it, but, they do live it. I don't know where I was going with that. But you know what I'm saying, right? And what I really started to connect the dots on is that it's amazing, and it's in the news all the time about churches having fallouts, right? Pastor gets caught here, preacher over there. This kid's, Christian camp is now getting sued by the DOJ for just, you know where I'm going with that. And I looked at my life and I was like, you know what? That could be me, right? I could walk up to a church on a Sunday and all of a sudden it's just doors nailed shut, buildings vacated, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, what do I do now? Right? Like where do I go? Like, I don't know what to do, right? And then all of a sudden you're thrown into that situation. I have to start figuring it out. And that's a scary thing. Most people would probably just look for the next church that they could just go and be a part of, right? And I'll give you a better example. What if you're living in an area where there is only one church, right? And then all of a sudden that church burns down and you don't have the church anymore. What are you going to do? Right? It's Sunday. Where are you going to go? Like, just pretend there's no churches. It was the only church on the island and it's gone. Now what are you going to do? Yeah, you could rebuild it. That takes time and that's fun and everything, but it's not there anymore, right? And I think that happens a lot with the way that we are brought up and educated when it comes to anything that does with religion and like spirituality and stuff, or self-discovery, like trying to figure out who you are. And from my employment experience, I was like, you know what? I don't want that to be my life. I don't want to put in time and then all of a sudden wake up one day and show up ready to go to work and then the work's just not there, right? I don't know if I'm comfortable putting all my faith into a building, into a church, if I just show up one day and all of a sudden, like the IRS is there and then it's closed and it's not there anymore? Like, what do I do? Where do I go? And it's not to say that church is bad. There's a lot of really good things that come from church. I still go to church, right? And not all the time, but with my family and stuff. And it's just one of those things where there's a lot of good that comes out of it. And the things that I'm saying aren't about the bad things. It's more about trying to make sure that you work on this the most. And I think that is a thing that we're not really taught how to do, right? We're not taught to work on this because this takes time. And in order to figure out your heart and soul, you have to be willing to go places that nobody else can understand. And you have to be willing to go places I think even the church can't follow or give you advice as far as where to go, because if they can't do it, how can they teach you to do it? Now, there's a lot of people out there that have taught us how to do it. Jesus did. Yeah. I mean, I think when Jesus was in the desert, I don't think he was like, oh man, it's Sunday, I better get down there and make sure I make the 8 o'clock. I don't know if he was like that. He could have been. But I think, he was telling us something that through his mission and how he conducted himself and where he went, it was all about this and that. Working on you, your spirit, your truth, and then also getting a relationship with God. And once you have that, right, you can walk into any building and they won't be able to take anything away from you, right? And I think I see that way with the church, right? For a long time, I kind of just trusted the experts until this wake-up call happened, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, what a crazy wild opportunity to go move to Cambodia with my family. Like, what an experience. Even if I lose everything, which I probably will, didn't think I was, but it turned out that's how it went down. But look at the experience I got out of it. Like that's worth gold in itself. I did something nobody else did, right? I followed something that was telling me to go, and I went and I did it. And I had the faith that something was going to come out of it. And that's one of the things that you're not going to be able to hear, like in a pew or in a church or whatever, right? And it opened my eyes because it's like, man, I discovered so much out there, right? People would have passed that up because they wouldn't be able to go to a church on Sunday where I went. I mean, I'm living in a small little village in the middle of Cambodia. They're all Buddhist. Do you think that that's like the number one thing on my mind is to worry about going to church on a Sunday when I'm living there with my family? I mean, I could go to the Buddhist temple, but does that count or does that make me a traitor? Right? So this weird dilemma of just like trying to figure these things out, and these stupid thoughts that I shouldn't have are always in my head. Always in my head. Man, I couldn't get them out. Like, just get them out. But it's like, all these childish, stupid thoughts. And I was like, what if Jesus gave us the wisdom to carry with us wherever we go so we don't have to rely on too much other things except for ourself and God and the truth that's between that, right? And when I thought about that, I was like, well, then it's okay to go. I mean, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus just be like, sorry, I can't go. Like, I need to be here Sunday at 10 o'clock. I can go for like 6 days, but it takes like 3 days to get there. I can stay for like 24 hours and then come on. I don't think so. But I don't know. I don't have the answers to that stuff. But that's the stuff I think about. And the wake-up call I got with work really pushed me in a direction of trying to take some leaps and explore the creative side of things. Not to say that I'm creative. I'm not a creative guy. Golly, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that watch a show on Jackson Pollock and he's splattering the paints, and then I get the paintbrush up and I start splattering paints going, if this guy could splatter paint, I could splatter paint. Maybe I could sell it for $1 million. But it doesn't work like that. Because the way he did it was 100% divinely unique to him. But it's funny how we fall into those traps. And that wake-up call with work also made me wake up as far as my own, spirituality goes. And I like to kind of give some advice, not that you would take it. And I mean, I don't know if I would take advice from me, and especially in the weird roundabout ways this is all kind of fallen into my life, which I tell most people about, and they're like, psycho. But I think the lesson of this story is to always have something ready to go, right? And you do that by starting to take a little bit of time for yourself and working on some things. As dumb as they are, as stupid as they are, right? Sitting down every Saturday, forever how long it takes you to drink a cup of coffee, and to work on something, whatever floats your boat, whether it's a painting, whether it's writing, whether it's a manual, whether it's sharing a way to get through an experience, working on a novel, working on a book, and to really, really start doing that, especially with AI coming on board. Because you know what? In the worst case scenario, if you show up and those doors are closed and the building's vacated, at least you're on a path and you have something, right? For me, I was the guy who was going to work for a company for the rest of my life and then retire. Well, that changed, That changed. It's always been said, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. That was my plan. Well, it changed. I never wanted it to be my plan, but I was falling into the trap of it. And I think there's a similarity there with, faith and how we believe, right? Like that was a wake-up call to me too, that I need to start trusting my heart and soul and going these places and following these things a little bit. Because guess what? Even if I show up one day and that building's closed, at least I'm on a path to keep going. And I'm not going to be one of the ones that are sitting there going, what's next? Where do I go now? I don't know where to go. Like, what do I do? Do I have to phone a friend? Like, I just don't know how to make this decision. So I think that's the ultimate moral of this story and where I was trying to go with it. And looking at my life now, because it was crazy for me. I had nothing, right? I had nothing. I've never been good at business. I've never had ideas. Like I was jealous of the people. Like, how did this entrepreneur think of this idea? Like, give me an idea. I don't have ideas. And I would fight myself to try to think of ideas and to think of these things and to force myself to think of them. And no matter what, just like nothing would ever stick in my mind, right? Like, what am I going to do? Start a cryptocurrency or whatever like people do these days? What am I going to do? I don't know. I don't know how to do anything. And I was the one that rolled the dice. When my wife said, let's go to Cambodia, I literally went to Cambodia with nothing, not one idea, right? I had internet, computer, and that was it. And I was like, I need to figure out something that can work within these metrics, right? I'm in a foreign country. I don't speak the language, right? I mean, what do I want me to do? Get a job in a Chinese sweat factory? Like, they probably wouldn't even hire me. Not to say I would want to do that, but you know where I'm going with this. I had nothing. But I just knew that if I at least just went in that direction and I had the guts to say, you know what, let's go, something was going to come out of it. Good or bad, I don't know. Right? Because the number one thing we want to associate with the decisions we make is always this monetary return. And I think that has a lot to do with the decisions we make, because we always want to put ourselves in the best financial possibilities. And we always want to do things that are guaranteed an income back. But the funny thing is that it doesn't always work that way. And I think sometimes it works in reverse. If you're willing to do the thing that isn't going to give you the money up front, then maybe you'll be able to find something that rewards you later for being able to stick with it and go where you think you're being called to go. And it's the same way with faith. I think if you listen to your faith, your soul, and you try to tune into it a little bit, and it'll never make you a bad person. Right? Like your soul can't make you a bad person. I explained this in my other video. Like, I believe that's just a divine gift from God. It doesn't know evil. It only knows love. It's not going to guide you to go, rob a bank or something. It just doesn't work like that. This is there to help you. It's like God's gift for like help. It's like, yeah, man, this is your conscience. It's like right here. It's, I want to listen to it just a little bit. I know I don't want to, but it's there and it never goes away. Right? And all those little thoughts you had, maybe they were the right thoughts, but you were just too scared because this keeps tricking you all the time. And I think it's good to be prepared. And I think once you're prepared, and at least you know you have something and you've worked on something, you could always go back, right? I could always go to the church. And that's what it's supposed to be for, right? Like the church is there for me to go. I'm not there for the church, right? And it's the same thing with working, right? As long as I know I have the wheels going and I'm working on something, even if it doesn't yield me yet, even if it's just a few sentences a week, but that idea grows. And sometimes those ideas lead to new ideas. And eventually you're going to whittle out, and you're going to carve something. And that way, when you go to your job, guess what? It doesn't matter if you have it or not, because now at least you have something. And I think we all need to start working on that something, especially with what's coming down the line. I don't know if it's going to be that bad, but I don't know. That could be a wake-up call too. So anyway, love you guys. I hope maybe you took out a little something from this rambling, this guy who's on a camera talking about the weird things that happen in his life, and of all things, talking about faith and God and religion. And oh gosh, could it get any more boring? Really, could it get any more boring? I don't think so. I like it. And I enjoy sharing the way that I see it. Right or wrong, I cannot say that whatever I say is right. All I could do is express my ideas and express my thoughts. And you have a right to do that too, good or bad. But anyway, hope this video finds you well. And I'll catch you on the next one. And remember, keep the faith.